Thank you for joining us. We will start this webinar in about 5 minutes. Thank you for joining us. We will start this webinar in about 5 minutes.
A little echo going there, Carlene.
Thank you for joining us. We'll start this webinar in about 2 minutes. Thank you for joining us. We will start our webinar in about 1 minute. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Hirshberg Entrepreneurship Institute's webinar series, Yes, we can. Perspectives and strategies for success in 2021. Thanks for joining us. And in this webinar, we will be using the Q&A function, which will be right there on the bottom of your screen. If you click on the Q&A, this window will pop up. You can type in your question on the bottom, hit send, and our panelists will see that question. If you have any technical issues, you can put those in the chat, or anything else you'd like to share with the other attendees here. You can use the chat, but please use the Q&A for any questions you will have for our panelists. Thanks so much for being here, and I will now turn the mic over to Gary, who will have an opportunity to share a new opportunity for our community.
Okay, thanks, Carlene, and thank you all for joining us again. I'm really excited about today's webinar. We've got so many topics that you all have told us are of importance to you, but I think this one's going to be particularly appropriate for a bunch of our emerging growth friends out there. But before we get to that, as Carlene said, we're going to hear yet another special opportunity for our community. So the order of events here is Bob Burke has an offer he's going to be presenting, and then I will introduce our guest for today, and then we will have a quick poll that we'll want you to take. So without further ado, let me, you all know Bob, he doesn't need any introduction. He's been my partner in this entrepreneurship venture for, well, forever, for as far back as I can remember. So Bob, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. And let me see if I can share my screen here. And can everybody see this?
Yes.
All right. So let me just minimize that. So I'm going to be talking for a few minutes about my natural products field manual. This is a whole package of content, 4 volumes, 44 chapters, enriched with essays, editorial, commentary by over 50 industry experts. It also comes with a flash drive with directories of stores, directories of brokers, brand management companies, distributors, retailer and distributor programs, and a whole lot more. Things like sample broker contracts, budget models, sales planners, and so on. And over 100,000 in money-saving coupons, which I'll talk about in a moment, along with a half-day consulting by me that can be used very flexibly. So when it comes to the content, it's all nuts and bolts, very little, if any, sort of abstract theory. An example might be, we'll have an expert on branding talk about branding, and then someone like Gary wrote an essay on how to build a relationship with your consumer. Or I might write a comprehensive section on working effectively with brokers, but then we'll have essays from 8 or 9 leading brokers on some aspect of the broker-manufacturer relationship, you know, adding a tremendous amount of insight. And then we've got experts like Betsy McGinn, who's been a guest on HEI, talking about e-com and Amazon. We'll have Jeremy Smith on Costco and the Club Channel, and many more. The basic premise here is that just about every chapter in the book more than pays for the entire package. With the databases I mentioned, we've got about 1,600 natural and specialty stores. These would be in an Excel spreadsheet, so you can sort and extract, but also you'll see tabs for things like Whole Foods, Sprouts, Infra, NCG, and others. So it closely follows the SPINS database if you're looking to move the needle on your data, as well as prioritize key customers. And I mentioned the databases of brokers, distributors, brand management, but also we have an excellent sales planner, sales tracker, if you're looking to put a bottoms-up sales plan together. With the coupons, essentially, these are people I know, like, and trust. As I mentioned, a lot of them are contributors to the manual, and we really view this as a win-win-win. So if you're on the fence about getting this, using just a few coupons will either defray the cost of the manual or pay for it several times over. And in addition to Betsy and Jeremy, we've got spins. We have many of the leading brand management companies, branding firms, PR and social media and digital marketing firms, the folks that source co-manufacturers, as well as recruiters and others. So again, these are all on my website. You can skim through them and see how many of these might be applicable to you. And when it comes to the half-day consulting, it's very flexible. I've been consulting for 24 years. I don't work by the hour, but when someone gets the field manual, it can be an open door to call and email with questions. You can schedule an hour here, an hour there, or all at once. And certainly for all the many things I don't know, I have a pretty good network in the industry where I can help with introductions or get the answers to things that might be vexing you. And clearly, by spending a little bit of time going through the content first, it allows us to spend our time together more strategically rather than walking through things you can read on your own. And I hope you're all sitting down. We typically sell this for $39.99, as in $4,000. We sell it at that price all year. We don't discount it. But for the next 2 weeks, listeners of the program will be able to take $500 off until April 15th. And for every package that we sell, we'll also be donating $500 to the nonprofit 501c3 Hirshberg Entrepreneurship Institute to help support their programs and making them more accessible to folks in our community. That's a little background on me that you can go through later. And Carlene, after this, is going to be posting the deck, the table of contents.
Already done.
In the order form.
Yeah.
What's that?
Already up. It's in the chat.
Ultra efficient and capable.
Bob,
So
thank
thanks.
you. Listen, let me just say really quickly before we go to our panelists, you know, when Bob says he has pretty good contacts in the industry, I have to laugh. I mean, there is nobody who knows more people in this industry than Bob Burke. Okay. And he's my go-to for 100% of everything. This offer is amazing at the full price. And if you haven't seen this manual, you will not believe it. I mean, it is I would have killed for a chapter or two of this back when Bob and I were, you know, struggling to figure it all out, you know, a million years ago. So thank you for the generous donation to HEI, and everybody take a look, go on those links and check it out. It is quite an offer. So thanks, Bob. And thanks for your continued support of HEI.
Thanks for having me.
So as I said, we've been trying in this series to really respond to your asks and your needs. And sometimes we have ideas that are you haven't thought of. And one of the, if I'm not going to take the time at this hour because I want to get to the panelists to remind you of the sort of trajectory of topics, but as we've gone through finance and cash efficiency and then met some distributors and retailers and so forth, one of the things that keeps jumping out is in your questions is, how do I learn these things? Who do I partner with? And so this is really about partnership today. This is about two unique examples of partners who can you can join with in their own fashions in some very cutting edge and breakthrough ways that, again, like with Bob's manual, I would have killed to have had resources like this back in our day. And, you know, we all know it's become more brutal out there. COVID has only exacerbated things like trade spend, the threat of trade spend, but even just becoming meaningful for co-packers who, for when you come in and you're, you know, hat in your hand, carrying your little, you know, bowl, as in Oliver saying, you know, please, may I have some time on your line? You know, partners, people with experience can be enormously helpful. So with me today is Rich Thompson, who is the founder of Factory, which I'm going to let Rich explain. But just so you know a little bit about Rich, he's actually created over $3 billion in enterprise value as CEO of American Italian Pasta Company, the Meow Mix Company, anybody who's got cats, and Fresh Pet. He has deep operational experience across many, many disciplines. He's built all these organizations. He's done marketing and sales, manufacturing, supply chain, distribution, innovation, infrastructure. He's supervised the design and construction of 7 manufacturing facilities. He's done with CPG startups. Rich has helped to achieve 3 lifetime home runs. And as he will explain with this really, really unique incubator partner and investment, by the way, they have $250 million of investable capital as well as resources. You'll understand in a moment why I was very eager and delighted to have Rich join us. So welcome, Rich. Elliot Begoun really doesn't need any introduction at this point. He's been a panelist on many of our institutes. He's been a presenter on capital efficiency. But what we haven't done with Elliot is had him actually talk about the Intertwine Group, TIG, which is really focused on helping emerging food and beverage brands grow. And he helps CPGs to raise capital, prove velocity, gain distribution, drive revenue, and win share of stomach and of course of shelf. So he's a mentor at Food Bites. He's got articles, but we've never actually asked you, Elliot, to talk about TIG and how people can partner with you. So thank you for agreeing to do that with us today. Welcome again. And Elly Truesdell, I think many of you probably also know. Elly's been a now regular panelist at the Hirshberg Entrepreneurship Institute and has joined us in her a number of capacities. But Elly is a long time, she's been on both sides of the fence. She was a long time Whole Foods person. She'll tell you a little bit more as we get into the Q&A discussion. But these days she's a partner at a private equity firm that is really been a leader in helping and focusing on new emerging growth companies. I've partnered with Elly on a bunch of them. She is a fabulous partner and will be a fabulous co-panelist with a lot of insights from all sides of business from her position at as a partner at Almanac. So welcome, Elly. Thank you for joining us also. And all winter I've been meeting with Elly and she's had down coats on. So I know it's spring finally in Connecticut. So thank you all. Let's start. We'll go to you, Rich, to begin and take it from there.
Okay, thank you. Thanks and for having me, and give me like a 5-minute warning when I'm supposed to shut up and stop talking. So
Will do.
So I can wrap up. But thank you so much for having me on. I'll explain a little bit about myself and factory as we go forward. I got a couple of slides here I'll put up in just a second. But I've been a long time, lifetime entrepreneur. I started when I was in high school. I wanted to do something besides play baseball and chase all the cheerleaders. So I decided that I wanted to do something. So I teamed up with another buddy of mine, and as juniors in high school, we started out making candles for Pizza Hut restaurants throughout America. And we actually sold that business to Pizza Hut when we were sophomores in college. And so from there on, I've just always done my own thing. Nobody would hire me. Nobody wanted me. I was a college dropout. I only had 2 years of college. I used college to help do some of my businesses, like in the candle business. I made the highest grade ever in chemistry business because I used chemistry class for my candle workshop. But I've really loved what I do my whole life. So I've never really worked one day in my life because I've always worked on projects I love to work on. But truly, I've been an entrepreneur since I was born an entrepreneur. I just didn't know it until I was in high school, and I started off from there. So we'll start a little bit about the three. I've done multiple things. I've written a book about it, and et cetera, et cetera. But the 3 things that I'll talk about really quick is my first big opportunity was the American Italian Pasta Company, and then Meow Mix, the cat food company, Meow Meow Meow, and Fresh Pet. And on Fresh Pet, we took AIPC, the first one, public with Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. Meow Mix we sold to Del Monte, and Fresh Pet we took public on NASDAQ in 2014. I made a bet to everybody that Fresh Pet, when we started Fresh Pet, fresh, all natural food for dogs and cats, never been done before, no factories for it. that we did a little road show to go around to raise some funds for the IPO. And I was telling everybody we'd turn this idea into $1 billion business. And the bankers kept telling me, you can't say that. You can't say that because you're making promises. You're the CEO of the business and you can't like talk about that. It's not in the prospectus. You can only talk about what's in the prospectus. And so I kept saying it anyway. So I kept saying, no, this is $1 billion business. And at the end of the day, I was absolutely wrong. It went past $1 billion. The other day it was almost 7 billion, 6 billion. So I was really made a big mistake. I should have talked way more than what I said. But Freshpet has done extremely well, and we're really proud of that business that we've built there. And so when I left Freshpet, I couldn't stay because I have a really hard time following directions. And, I just can't nod my head. I got to, kind of like Gary, just tell you what I'm thinking and move on and make it happen. And being a leader of a public company, it's hard to do that. So I left and we formed a company called Factory. It's Factory, and I'll explain it in a minute. I'll put up a slide here, but it's an old Bethlehem steel factory building we purchased. So we call it Factory, kind of out of the idea that we've taken an old industrial 1940 building that made iron, if you will, and turned into a kind of a 2021 innovation center for all the work that we're doing. So it was pretty cool to do that. But the idea is that as we left Freshpet, we ran out and said, we're going to raise some money. So we raised $250 million. But the idea was to take all the 40 years of making all those mistakes that we've made and take it and put it to work. And so for all the years I've raised all this capital, lots of capital I've raised over the years, is that I've always sat in a really beautiful conference room at a private equity firm overlooking Park Avenue, or some law firm or accounting firm. And over the years, I just hate conference rooms. So you'd sit there and they'd say, hey, next week we're going to bring in the finance people, or next week we're going to bring in the supply chain people, or next week we're going to bring in the marketing people, or you got to get on a plane and fly to Miami and see somebody. And I just thought that's such a waste of time. And it's just like, it's just like killing. I want to know everything today, like in the next hour, I want to know. And so I said, what happens if you build like a conference room that is like that big, and you got everybody right there. And if you want an idea, you just walk right over there and you just talk to somebody. And they go, that's just too expensive. It can't happen. And I go, oh, that's not too expensive. It can happen. And so I said, well, let's just figure this out. So anyway, we've got this 40,000 square foot building here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We raised this capital. We have about just under 50 people that work here full time. And now you can put up the first slide and I'll tell you what we're doing here. I think she's going to share the screen and put up just three little slides to give you an idea of what we're doing here. So Factory, there you go. I put up a big sign on top of the damn building. So if you can't see very well, you can see where you're at. So the idea is we were investing in companies and helping brands grow faster. So the idea for me is to have this space. And so most people, when they invest in companies, say, okay, well, you're in Seattle, you're in Chicago, you're in Miami, here's the money. Let's have a call once a week, or let's, get together quarterly and go over the financials and talk about how you're spending the money or put the budgets together. And I said, I hate that idea. Is that it's like, think about if you get a scholarship to go to Harvard or Yale or Columbia or wherever you're going to school, is that you kind of got to go there, right? You got to show up and go there. So if you're going to take money from Factory, guess what? You got to come over here, right? You got to be here because we want to surround you by these 50 professional people that can give you answers in minutes or hours. So it's a different concept. And obviously, if we grow you big enough, then we're going to push you out and get your own space. And we can talk about some of those businesses that we've already done that. But the idea is that we want to surround you with the right people in a really cool space. And we've got all the capital that you're ever going to need. So you don't have to worry about raising more capital, because I find entrepreneurs spend more than 50% of their time raising capital and probably about 98% thinking about it. Right, Gary? So you're always thinking about where's the next buck coming and how am I going to make my payroll or build the next factory I got to build. So anyway, I'm not going to read these slides to you, but you can see all of these things. So flip to the next slide, please. So here's some pictures of the factory building, which is pretty cool. Some aerial drone shots we took. You can see the slides there. You can see the inside of the building. We can put about 500 people in the building. The red containers on the right there are kind of think of them as your dorm rooms, where you hang out in the dorm room. And then all down below is all the classrooms where all of the, whether it's packaging design or consumer insights or packaging engineering or food scientists. We have Harvard food scientists to help you make up new SKUs. We have all the internet, e-com, we have supply chain, everything you need other than manufacturing is in this building. We've got even a really great chocolate lab pot roast, so she'll come and talk to you once in a while and look for a scratch or a pet. But it gives you an idea of where we are. We're in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. We're an hour from New York, basically, and an hour from Philly. Depends on how fast you drive. Then one more slide real quick is my other two partners that I have. Keith Caldwell and Tim Pollock are two partners we have. On the right there are some of the brands. We've made 7 investments to date so far. You can see some of the investments that we've made so far. So now you can get rid of these slides and we just go back to the screen. So anyway, that's just a little bit about factory and who we are and what we're doing. And if you're in the neighborhood, you're always welcome to drop over, see the place. We have lunch here every day, breakfast every day. We got a couple of chefs here. They're always working on new innovations, so they're always feeding us something. So far, they haven't hurt us too bad. So if you're in the neighborhood, stop by or give us a call, and you're always welcome to come and take a tour. So people ask me all the time, like, what do you invest in? What do you look for when you invest in these companies? And remember, I'm an entrepreneur, been an entrepreneur my whole life, and I'm kind of like Gary. I've heard his story on NPR, and Gary, you and I have a lot to talk about on the rocky road to success, right? And so first thing I always look for is the entrepreneur themselves, right? I always look at the entrepreneurs. Some people say I'm crazy, but it takes one to know one. So I can change a lot of things. I can change the package, the flavor, the price, the margin. I can change a lot of things, but I can't change the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is who they are, and you either got to believe in them and back them and go all the way. But then you got to understand what you're backing, right? What kind of person that is, or what kind of person and team that might be. So you really have to spend some time to understand that. So that's the first thing. I put probably 50% emphasis on the entrepreneur themselves, because it's so important. Because are they really dedicated? I mean, I can spend an hour just talking about that, but I won't. That's my number one thing, is the person or persons themselves. Second thing I always look at is taste. Because if something doesn't taste good, like Gary's yogurt in the early days, if it didn't taste good, he wouldn't have sold. He'd have been out of business, 2 weeks later, and he had never done it.
Garden salad yogurt notwithstanding. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there you go. So the idea, if you don't have taste, you can't get velocity. Unless you're growing hair or some crazy thing that is overwhelming, is that you got to have really good taste. I don't care if it's for the dog or cat, or whether it's for beverages or for food. You got to have really good taste, so you get that leverage and that velocity. The other one is scalable. Is it scalable? Is something scalable? And that can mean a lot of things. And one of the things, I'm an operating guy, and I've built lots of factories. Is like raw materials. Where do I get them from? Oh, are these peely nuts coming from the Philippines? Oh, that guy in the Philippines is shooting everybody. I'm not sure I want to go to the Philippines and get peely nuts this week, right? So you got to think about where the raw materials come from, and you're going to get enough, because we don't want to have $1 million business or $10 million business. We want to have $100 million business. So where am I going to get my raw materials, right? So scaling is really important on that for me. And is it a trend or a fad, right? Is it, a lot of fads right now, a lot of fads, right? I got to determine what's a fad and what's going to be around in a few years. So trend and fad is really important. Margin is something that's near and dear to my heart. Is that a lot of people go, oh, I got this, and I've got 10% margin or 20% margin. Well, I have a hard and fast rule. If I can't find 40% margin out the gate, I'm not an investor. I'm not part of it. I like to see north of 50. Fresh Pet, we have north of 50, 51, 52. And you can build a business, and you got some cash that can, go back in your business. But when you're at 10, 15, 20, 30, it's hard. So margin is something really important. And the other one, my last one on my list, and I've got a big list, but that's kind of my list, is the last one is IP. or what I call barriers. Because just because you have a good idea, if everybody else can do it, I mean, you better be really fast and first to market and build a brand really fast. Because if it's a good idea, there's a lot of impersonators in this world, and from the Chinese to your next door neighbor. So the fact is that having barriers to entry, and take Freshpet, for instance, a lot of barriers there. Nobody's ever done it before. There was no factories for fresh refrigerated food. There's no equipment manual. There's nobody you can call and say, hey, can you give me the idea and the lowdown? There's no packaging. So there's just a lot of barriers. And if you look at Freshpet today, there's still not anybody making fresh dog food. Freshpet's the only one out there. That's why they've got to $7 billion, right? So there are a lot of barriers. And the last big barrier was refrigerators. Because if you think about it, there was no place to sell fresh dog food at the retail space. And they weren't going to put it next to the hamburgers and your steak. So think about it. Most of us want to go in and put one SKU or two SKUs on a shelf, and you're begging the buyer to let me test this. It's going to work. I had to go in and say, no, I want 4 feet by 7 feet. I want a whole gondola. Take a whole gondola out. And oh, by the way, there's no electricity. Oh my gosh. So I got to run electricity all the way to the back room, and I got to get the right wire. I got to get its own circuit breaker. I got to maintain it. I got to stock it. I got to merchandise it, and I got to convince you it's going to work. And by the way, all that 4 foot, they go, how am I going to get recovery on that? Right. So a lot of that today, there's almost 30,000 Freshpet coolers in the market. While I was there, we did about 16,000, which I'm not going to say the first 16 are harder. The last 16 are harder, but they were all hard to get in. So the idea is barriers to entry are really important. And I think everybody looked at Freshpet now and say, most stores don't need 8 feet of coolers. So anyway, those are kind of the key points there. And then the other one I want to talk about, while I still have time, is raising capital, because that's something that everybody has to do. And Gary's got so many stories from his mother-in-law to his his mom, to everybody, that raise capital, is that everybody has a different view on raising capital. I mean, you can talk to 10 people and you get 10 different answers. But my raising capital is not raising money, but finding a partner. And I think there's a big difference, raising money and finding a partner. And I have a different way of going about it. A lot of people say, well, I want to do this, and I'm going to take step one. And I'm going to raise $20,000 or $200,000 or $2 million, whatever. I have a different approach. Is that when I have an idea, I go out and say, I'm gonna be the first new state-of-the-art modern pasta factory in North America in 40 years. And what's that all about? Well, that's about $50 million. So I've never built a pasta factory. I didn't really have a lot of success selling candles and building islands in the Caribbean and building hotels somewhere else and so forth. But building factories and being a manufacturer and making spaghetti, I didn't have a lot of experience. Drilling oil wells, okay, you could go back on that. But so I put a business plan together to go out and raise about $52 million to build the world's state-of-the-art biggest pasta factory ever built in America. And so I took that book and I started going around and talking to people. And I went to 52 different banks, and 51 of them threw me out. 51 of them threw me out. And some of them kind of literally like, get out of here. I was too young, no experience, not even Italian. I have no manufacturing experience. And I've heard every excuse there is. But every time I went to one of those banks, they'd give me a tip or 2 tips. And so I'd go back to my business plan. Back in those days, there was a big 3-ring binder. So we'd take the binder out, we'd change and put the slide in, take it out, glue it back together. And we go to the next bank. The next bank would say something, we'd do the same thing. So after about 30 or 40, I was getting pretty tired, but I said, I'm not quitting. So I got to the 52nd bank, and the guy looked at the business plan and said, oh my God, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want to do. He says, you're in. He says, we'll loan you the $52 million. And so he said, there's one exception. There's always one exception. He says, you've never made any spaghetti. So he says, you got to get somebody that's at least a 10% partner to be part of the deal, so that we know that you've got some spaghetti knowledge in the deal. So I said, that's not a problem. I've got I was in Italy for 2 years talking to the Italians and learning, because I knew more about pasta and pasta manufacturing than probably anybody in America at that time because of the 2 years I spent in Italy. So I went back to Italy and got a partner. But the one thing that I remember is that I went back and looked at all those 51 bankers. All 51 of those bankers, I went back and researched them, and I kept a list of all of them. Not a one was Italian. Not one was Italian. The 52nd was Italian. He got it. He understood. George Fingera. George Fingera. That was in 1985, and I still know that guy's name on the top of my head. George Fingera, president of CIT, the old Manny Hanny bank on Park Avenue. And he was like all over this. And, you know, it's stupid. I'm putting a pasta factory together. Why didn't I do a research on all the bankers in America with an Italian name? Start there. Maybe I'd only sing 5 instead of 52.
Good advice.
So
Good
it's
advice.
like stupid little ideas, but they're ideas that are just like, boom, you know, like I should have figured that out. So when I started the American Italian Pasta Company, the other part of financing is thinking that you got to own 100% of everything, right? And so I know that, you know, Gary and his partner, at the end of the day, they own, you know, 10% with some options and doing this and that. Next thing. So when I started American Italian Pasta Company, is that I own 100%. Yes, it was my business and I owned it, and I'm going to be the pasta king. There's even something in the damn Forbes magazine from back whenever I made a statement, I'm going to be the Donald Trump of pasta, you know, back in the 1980s, because Donald Trump was a big man back then. And he was having a big road race like the one in Europe. He was having it in America, and I was going to be the sponsor and the pasta guy. And you know, so that word's still out there. So it's
All
like,
right. You should ignore that piece of advice, everybody, by the way.
oh, no, ignore it for sure. But I'm telling you, that's how strong I was. I was going to be doing whatever it took to be the king of pasta.
3 minutes, Rich.
All right, 3 minutes. So anyway, I was 100%. And so then I brought in the Italian partner. So now it's 50-50. So then we raised $75 million more. Now I'm 25%. And now we had to raise more capital. I'm 12.5%. So I went from 100 to 50 to 25 to 12.5. We took the company public for $600 million. We sold it to ConAgra. They took it, reversed and took it private for $1.6 billion, right? So the point is, you don't have to own a lot. You just have to have really good partners. You have to have really good partners. And if you own, you know, 10% at the end of the day, you're home run. You're a home run. So get off the idea that you got to own it all. And don't worry about selling 50% away. Just be sure you've got a partner and not just a finance guy. That's my advice.
That's
so
really
I can keep talking for hours, but that's kind of where I am.
No, it's great. And look, I forgot to do the poll at the beginning. Actually, it's perfect timing now. While Carlene puts it up, I'd like to make a couple quick comments and then go to Elliot. So if you would, folks, just fill out the poll here. We'll see the results in just a second. But I want to say that I'm eager to get to the Q&A. And of course, like I said, Elly knows very well what you just said, because in Almanac, because of her vast experience on both sides, on the buying and the selling side, she's found herself to be a real partner with the firm she's invested in. So I want to get into the discussion, but I invite our everybody who's on today in the Q&A, if you've got a particular question or challenge that you're facing and you want even just directional guidance, you just got an earful from a guy who's sort of touched all aspects of it, and you're about to hear from yet another who really, these three folks can speak to every aspect of what you need. So ask your own questions. So here we have about half were in and half were not. Very interesting. And then of course, no surprise here, 60% are in need of investment or operating support. So, and the 41% who said, no, you're all wrong, but that's okay. It's good to know that that's what you think. I joke, but you know, the reality is that partnering in one way or the other, looking at money and money sources as partners can, you know, enhance any of us. But I'm glad that 41% of you feel in pretty good shape now. So Elly, any quick questions or comments before we run to Elliot, or do you want to just save them till we hear Elliot?
No, I think that was great from Rich. I mean, it's always great to hear your story because it's so impressive and so, you know, varied. I think it's a good takeaway to just go after what you're excited to build, because there's not there's not many common threads there other than you just wanted to build and be an entrepreneur and work for yourself. And I do think we'll probably get into this more later, but certainly for any of you thinking about taking on a capital partner, keep in mind that you guys have the power as entrepreneurs. Everybody wants to invest in your businesses. So be really careful who you're taking money from, who your partner is going to be, and look for someone who's really adding value in sort of any number of ways. Cause I think that's really shifted. The power is sort of in your hands.
Yeah, great advice. People carrying your hat, but don't forget you're interviewing them too. Elliot, that's a perfect segue to set you up. So let's hear from you.
Yeah, and Gary, in your infinite wisdom, I can see why you paired Rich and I together, because I'm probably the only one who can match his energy and exuberance. I mean, you couldn't pick two more polar opposite presenters. So for those of you listening, this is your velvety melatonin alternative voice. So just chill. I'll go ahead and share my screen if I can. All right, there we go. And we'll talk about a few things. I just kind of want to run through some lessons, because as I do this, I view myself as a student of this business, my 32nd year in it. And I am still learning every day from everyone like all of you on this. But there's some things that just struck me in this pursuit of understanding this industry more. And this is the first of those stats. And source dependent, this number changes, plus or minus $1 billion, but roughly since 2013, about $18 billion in market share has transferred from the largest CPG companies to emerging brands like many of those on this call. And that on the surface is cool and exciting and is what gets us all going. But the contra to it is that somewhere greater, and again, source dependent, of 80% of the CPG brands that start are gone within 2 years. And to me, that's just unacceptable. It shouldn't be. And it's not that 80% or more of the people that start in this industry have bad ideas or they're not capable entrepreneurs. It's just often they're set off on the wrong course, or they're missing some really, really key things that if they could have seen those coming, been told about them early in their journey, maybe would have been able to survive and bridge what we call that valley of death, which we'll talk a bit more about. But one of the biggest reasons in my experience and in my learning that we see this kind of failure rate is this mythical creature. It's this unicorn, right? We celebrate unicorns. That's what everybody talks about, the big exit, the overnight success, the hockey stick trajectory. And there's nothing wrong with the unicorn, and by no means am I opposed to the unicorn, but the unicorn is what it is, which is mythical, rare, almost non-existent, if existent. And yet the vast majority of entrepreneurs and brands coming in follow that well-worn path. And if it's a elusive creature, that's why in my mind, 80 to 90% of the brands that start are gone within 2 years. So there is an alternative, and we use the alternative, that the antithetical mascot of the unicorn as the tardigrade. And, so then the question is, what the hell is a tardigrade? First of all, I mean, it's a lot cuter than a unicorn. There's no question about it. But this is a small microscopic creature that pioneers new ecosystems, that can live at the depths of the ocean, can live on the moon, can slip into cryptobiosis and survive without food and water for 30 years. It is emblematic of what every brand should be: resilient, pioneering, and able to exist as the environs and the environment changes. And what we see are the elements of that. The key elements of a tardigrade are: one, small, agile teams trying to stay as as lean for as long as you can. That doesn't mean that you don't have the talent around you that you need to accelerate, but you don't have a large mouth to feed and find so much fixed cost being absorbed. That you're e-com enabled, both direct to consumer and business to business. That you have a laser focus on channel and unit economics. This is something that is so key. Is, you know, scale. I hear this all the time. You know, when we look at things like cost of goods, you know, scale's going to solve it. As we scale, our COGS go down. Well, guess what? Just a FYI to those listening. As you scale, you will also find your price will go down because there's going to be natural compression of that. So being really focused on understanding the cost of and the unit economics transactionally and the channel economics transactionally as you look at your business and as you grow your business. Gary knows this one. This is my, you know, absolute, you know, drum beat. And that's this relentless pursuit of capital efficiency, a commitment that for every capital dollar deployed, you understand clearly how it's going to return in revenue, in gross profit and EBITDA. That you have a curated discipline approach to retail. I say this often, you know, the battle's getting on the shelf, the war is getting off. And the allure of growing distribution and building business like that is like the drums of Jumanji. I mean, it's just in your head. It's, you know, more doors, more doors, more doors. But the Tardigrade brands, the brands that think this way, take a curated approach and really go to the retailers in the right places where they can win. Short cash conversion cycle. So we talk a lot about margin. We talk a lot about those things, but you know, being able to convert your cash quickly from the time you make goods to the time you get paid for the selling of those goods, and being focused on how you can shorten that cycle is key. And also just finding multiple ways to drive discovery. Consumers shop, you know, in this business, we create channels, but that is something that we create arbitrarily ourselves. We say we're in, you know, e-commerce, we're in mass, we're in natural grocery, we're in conventional, but that's not how consumers think about it. Consumers shop up and down a continuum. On one end of the continuum is where they discover, and on the other end is where they replenish. And your job as a brand is to find as many intersects along that continuum to reach that consumer, understanding which of those intersects does which of those two things, either drives discovery and trial or provides replenishment opportunity. And lastly is digital is your friend, and you need to build a tribe and so forth. So that's the element of the elements of this Tardigrade, the antithetical brand to a unicorn. So then the other question we tried to answer, and we built this business around answering these questions, by the way, is why do some outperform others? And what I'm talking about here is we've all seen this. Why do some entrepreneurs just seemingly outperform others when on paper everything looks similar? You know, good opportunities, good brands, you know, everything looks right, but yet consistently we find that there's this cluster of people that win and win, you know, time and time again, and others that don't. That was something I just really wanted to figure out. And I don't know that I have all the answers by any stretch, but I do have a theory, and it's something that's proven true. First of all, those entrepreneurs that outperform historically follow what we call this threefold path, and we break it out here just to alliterate it, and we make it look like a very sequential path. But if I were to really draw out the way it looks more like a plate of spaghetti, because all of these things are happening concurrently and it's messy and so forth. But the elements that I'm going to kind of review here are absolutely indicative of those entrepreneurs that seemingly have a higher propensity to win than those that don't. So one is they're always assessing where they are, right? They're assessing the addressable market and questioning that. They're questioning, have I really found product market fit? What do I need to tweak? What do I need to change? They're challenging their go-to-market economics, really making sure they understand, can they get better? Where am I going to do well? Where am I investing? Rich made this point too. They're asking and they're making sure that there's real scalability in the opportunity, that they have a clear path to really blow the business up, and that that they're assessing fairly. I always say that they're passionately dispassionate. Am I investment ready? Am I going to be attractive to an investor? Do I have a confident and cogent argument that I can take to an investor that I represent the best opportunity for her or for him to invest in this? Then what they do is try to position the business to grow, right? And that starts with developing a cogent growth hypothesis. Elly, you've probably seen this 100 times or more. When an entrepreneur shows up and says, the addressable market or the category is 10 billion and I need to get 1% of it, and that's our growth plan, right? A cogent growth hypothesis is one that's built on testable, measurable assumptions based on pricing architecture, investment in marketing and acquisition, on trade, and has really clear revenue sources. And it's something that you can take aspects of and take them into the market and test and prove. That you have very clear understandings of where the revenue is coming from, what velocities that revenue is based on, how it's going to get there. Gary, this is your favorite, that you understand that and that you've positioned and you can see how every decision you're making and everything that you're doing has a cash implication. That you have a capital strategy. So a lot of brands, a lot of entrepreneurs raise the money that they need now. I want entrepreneurs to think about the money they're going to need tomorrow, a year from now, 5 years from now, and really think about strategically how you build the best plan to get that and what's the right relationship between equity and debt and all of those things, and have a strategy around the capital you're going to need to build into the business, and that you can talk about this, that you have an investor narrative that differentiates. That's how you position a brand, when you can sit in front of an investor and be able to tell a compelling argument why you do in fact represent the very best place for that investor to put their money and represent the best opportunity for them to see the kind of monetized return that they want. So that's one. So then the next thing they do is they growth hack. I'm a big believer in human-centered design thinking, and that's taking that growth hypothesis out in the market and seeing and learning how wrong you were. So that starts by taking some of those variables, could be pricing, could be promotion, could be your acquisition strategy, and building small controlled experiments aimed at trying to validate your assumptions. And just as importantly, invalidate those assumptions. You're looking for that voice of consumer clarity. You're looking that as you do this, you're not trying to wildly stack the deck just to win in that, because what you're looking for is something that is that you can replicate, that is scalable, that you can continue to do it from a monetary standpoint. And you're welcoming all this insight and learning that you're getting back. You're creating a feedback loop to get real market intel about your products. And then you start preparing to scale by all of that information flows into a more refined go-to-market strategy and a brand activation strategy. You start building your organizational design for the next 5 years. So you know how your business needs to grow and the people you need to have around you in order to absorb that growth, that you leverage this incredible ecosystem to make sure you're plugged in and have, those other folks that you need. And then this one, not so sexy, but that you're constantly working on getting your house in order. When you take big growth steps, it's going to put stressors on things like demand planning and supply chain and order to cash processes and all of those kind of things. I've seen a lot of brands do everything else right and then not be able to absorb that growth just because they haven't thought about this. They just haven't thought about what's in the back. And then the third element of that threefold path, One of them is community. The entrepreneurs that win are actively building community, and in specific, 3 types of community. The community of consumers, which most of us think about, building that tribe and building the consumers that we can motivate and turn into evangelists and get going. But there's 2 other communities that you need to build with the same kind of fervor. One is your community of collaborators. These are your peers in this industry. These are the people that you can come together and find shortcuts and ways to become force multipliers for each other. So you should be actively pursuing collaborators. And then your community of champions. These are advisors, mentors, friends, just people who can open doors or knock them down for you, who can make shit happen, right? You need to have a cluster of folks around you. And then the other thing that I think is really important, and again, this comes from observations and study, the entrepreneurs that win believe in what I'll call karmic boomerangs. And that is, they believe in giving without the expectation of reciprocity. And Gary is a shining example of this, right? I mean, what he does here, and as much as it pains me to say something nice here, what he does with HEI and all these other things, it's giving without any expectation of reciprocity, right? But I will tell you, as a strategy, if you really do that, that it does that reciprocity may come from somebody else completely unrelated, but the founders that do well in this industry give. So, and then the last of that 3-fold path is accountability, rigor. You have to build rigor. Discipline wins in this business. So that means every important call you have, you bring the best and the brightest you have on your team around the table or around a Zoom call and plan it out. Plan every potential objection. Talk about every potential point you want to make. So you go in there feeling like you have your best foot forward. That you have objectives and key results, so that you can discern the important from the interesting and really know what you should be working on, because there's no shortage of things to do and things that can pull you away. That you have a process for managing tasks and projects, that you have a real financial review. Even if you're a team of 1 or 2, have a financial review with yourself. I mean, really set it in your calendar where you're going through P&Ls, balance sheet, and cash flows, and knowing, and that you're always checking and going back to your strategy. So let me tell you how we quickly approach this, and then we can jump into Q&A. We at TIG, we offer 2 different programs. We have our Tardigrade Incubator. What that is a hybrid online program. It's a 3-month program that features 8 online courses that you take at your own pace. And one is the Tardigrade and the 3-fold path. One is simply on learning cash flows and waterfalls, which are channel and unit economics. You're building and constructing a growth hypothesis, developing your capital strategy and structure, how to pitch, whether that's to an investor, to a retailer, working on growth hacking, how to develop those experiments, run those experiments, and use them to inform and update your strategy, how to prepare for scale, and how to activate your brand, and how to build community and drive accountability. The way the program works is that the learners have 3 months to go through those 8 courses. In addition to those 8 courses, every week we have a live interactive workshop where we bring all of those entrepreneurs together and we delve into issues that are teaching in the coursework and anything else. We have an online community that's closed. We like it because it creates this psychological safety where founders can be, vulnerable and honest with each other and post questions that maybe they wouldn't ask elsewhere. And we have wikis and all kinds of ways to source information. And we've got some great advisors in there. We provide coaching sessions at the end of each course. We have daily virtual office hours for teammates available. They get to be the audience in our TIG Talks and have access to the small conversations. And we do fun things like virtual happy hours where we do, sometimes we'll have a guest, sometimes it's just brags and bitches, whatever needs to happen, trying to create that sense of you're not alone in this. You've got people that are fighting a similar battle, and then access to our other programs. Our other program is for brands a little further along. That's our accelerator program. That program is my response to looking at accelerators. Most accelerators, and this is no admonishment of them because I'm a fan of accelerators because it brings people around, but I just felt like there could be a slight different approach, because most accelerators are cohort structure and curriculum based. And when you bring cohorts and curriculum together, oftentimes that means you have to try to distill things down to the common denominator. And the one thing in this business that I've learned for sure is that every brand, every entrepreneur has its unique puzzle, and it's very different. That sometimes they require founders to be absent from their business, to leave their business, which is really, really difficult. Most have an equity mandate and they're time limited. You're in for 3 months, 5 months, et cetera. And they're not necessarily performance based. You're not necessarily aligned, that a win-win situation. So the way we approach it slightly different. It's a one-to-one customized program following that threefold path we just discussed. It's flexible duration and an easy out, simple 30-day see ya by either side. Most of our brands that come in are with us 18 to 36 months, but we've had some brands that have been with us for 5+ years. Founders stay working in their business. We come alongside you instead of you coming alongside us. There is no equity mandate. It is completely performance-based. We win together, we're stakeholders together, and it is application-based, so you apply to come in. Quickly, our team, you know me, Jenny is a longtime founder. She's been in this industry as a founder for 8 years, so she knows intimately the struggle. Wave and Dean is an amazing creative. He's been in the creative space for over 30 years. And then our team is rounded up by Julietta, who runs our brand community and all our online events and so forth, and Charity, who's there to support the brands. So that's it. And here are some of the brands that are currently part of our accelerator program today. And I'm ready to dig into Q&A.
Wonderful. Elliot, thank you. I'm sure everybody understands now between the two presenters thus far, just how much wisdom and experience and how many scars and gray hairs have become available. Elly, I want to ask you if you have any comments to start the discussion. We've got some questions. I also want you to, if you would, just take a minute and introduce yourself so people understand the background. And again, folks, use the Q&A. We'll go to you as much as possible. I do need to quickly say that I wish we had 3 or 4 hours for this group, because what I love about what you've said thus far is, it's all real world stuff here, right? And the only way to really be of use is to dig into the actual story and have time to ask questions. Now, of course, the Institute, the 3-day Institute coming up May 5, 6, 7, we'll talk about that at the end, gives you the opportunity to present your case to people like you've heard today. But as I said before, if you do have a particular problem, something you're really trying to solve or figure out that any of these 3 folks or 4 of us can help with, pop them in the Q&A and we'll do our best. But Elly, take a minute to come on yourself and on Elliot's comments.
Yeah, just on Elliot, thank you. I think in watching that presentation, for anyone who's on this Zoom, I think it's a really good reminder of just all of the fundamentals, like sort of piece by piece. And for any entrepreneur who's building probably with a very small team and is really heads down, that was just for me sort of a good reminder of like, oh, look at all of these principles that you just have to sort of stick with, keep your head down, stay disciplined. It's just good reminders in there. And I loved the karmic boomerangs comment. I think maybe more than any other business, food and bev, like you just, especially for the 50% of people who are coming to CPG from another business and industry, it's a really warm industry. And it really, I think people, for the most part, love helping each other. And it really does come around the reciprocity piece. It just sort of, it's a little bit of a lower barrier to entry business by nature, by design. So, you know, come prepared to sort of share the love. But yeah, I thought that was really a nice presentation and really nice balance to sort of Rich, what you do and how you shared your story. So thank you both. Quickly, before we get into some of the Q&A, yeah, happy to give a little bit more background. So I was lucky to spend almost 10 years at Whole Foods, most of my career, and had a really interesting job there. I oversaw the local brands and product innovation program, first regionally and then globally for the company. And so I really was the person you came to if you were a young emerging brand. One great story from Rich's portfolio, Pipcorn, I brought in many, many years ago and met Jeff and Jen when they were very young and early in their journey. And that's been the case with sort of maybe hundreds of brands sort of across those years. But I touched every category, and the idea was to identify, you know, growing areas of the store where we wanted to have an influence and find brands that were sort of pushing and evolving the quality standards. So was really lucky to build a really great network over those years and meet a lot of young entrepreneurs, which led me to investing, partially because of that network and sort of understanding the quick high growth phase. But in between there, I actually ran a manufacturing business for 1.5 years. So I really appreciate Rich's work and have a real respect for what goes into making products and co-packing, and always looking for manufacturers that are dedicated to quality and integrity in their food. But yeah, now have been at Almanac for 2 years. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but for me and for our team, we really care about being valuable members of your team and partners. And so we actually, that's a big part of our investment mandate. We only invest in companies where we can play a role and we have a real perspective on your cap table that normally is very different from the rest of your investors. So I know like my lane, I know where we play well and where we can provide value. And, you know, so excited to be on this call with so many great participants, it looks like.
Yeah, thank you, El. So we do have, let's just go right away. We do have some concrete questions for each of you, but I'd like also to have this be as interactive as possible. So while I have a question for Rich, you know, Elly and Elliot, feel free to jump in and vice versa. Rich, there's a couple of practical questions. Is there a minimum revenue level that a brand needs to be for your interest?
Well, yes and no, but it's we say between 2 million and 20 million. We like companies that have fought the battle a little bit, and they really understand how hard it is. And that's a lot more appreciation in that. And then we also be able to do more consumer insights on the brand and retailer insights as well with the retailers, so that when we put our forces on it, we know exactly what we need to do to scale it up. So 2 to 20. But when we have a good idea, like Stuff Puffs, which, you know, the first year it'll do 50 million out the gate, nobody's figured out how to stuff a marshmallow with chocolate. That's an idea I couldn't refuse.
Well, you did say taste was one of your top 2.
Yes, it is.
Elliot, I presume there's no size threshold with you guys.
No, I mean, depending on the program, but in the accelerator program, it's usually, you know, pre-seed, seed stage to Series A, so somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and Elly, what about you guys? What's your? Do you have a size target?
We're pretty flexible. We have invested in a couple pre-revenue companies, one Gary that we're involved in together, which we're really excited about. But typically we want to see around 1 million, 2 million in revenue, but we've made plenty of exceptions, so I wouldn't hold me to that.
It's about the entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, truly. And that's one thing actually I wanted to sort of hear a little bit more from you guys, or that could be helpful for teams on the call, is I think absolutely about the entrepreneur. And then I would love to hear from both of you just, you know, how you think about building teams from there. It was sort of striking me, Elliot, as you were going through all of your fundamentals, and almost for me being like, wow, yeah, these are good steps to be considering. But, you know, not every founder is going to cover each one of those areas with expertise. So just maybe some thoughts on how you build the team.
Well,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Elliot.
No, go ahead, Rich. You go first. I like.
I was going to say we have the team already here. We have 50 people here, so we like it when an entrepreneur's only got a handful of people, because then we give them the capital, is that we use our team to do the other things. Most entrepreneurs can do one or two things really well. But there's like Elliot said, there's like 20 things you got to do or 30 things you got to do. So we'll let them do the one or two things they do good, then we'll supplement the other ones. And we also find it, it's really interesting when we sell these companies, we grow them fast and sell them to strategics or another private equity. If it goes to a strategic, as you know, they go, oh, we're going to keep everybody for the next year and no problem. And a year later, they fire everybody but 3 or 4 people. Well, here, they can take as many or as little as they want because we have the team here. So if they need something to go with them and something happens to them later, they just come back here to the factory and work for us again. So we can recycle people in that way. So it's really interesting that they don't have to get rid of people. They take what they need.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we do that org design for that 5 year is to really plot that out, because a lot of founders, you know, especially in the early days, and Gary, you probably remember this one, you have to wear multiple hats, and sometimes they're hats that you just hate wearing or you suck at. But if at least you have a plan to know and triggers as to when you're going to either be able to fractionalize that or hire somebody directly to do that, it helps you stay focused on getting that done. And so what we try to do is match the need with the moment. And sometimes that is our team coming around and just trying to help guide them. Sometimes that is finding that fractional freelancer, small agency. And then sometimes it's you're ready or need to make that strategic hire now. And it just depends on what the area is. And part of it too is having a lot of honest conversations with the entrepreneurs. You know, what do you feel you're good at? What do you feel you're not? Some of it is something they're capable of doing, maybe even enjoy doing, but just need to be taught how to. And so, but again, going back to the tardigrade, we do try to encourage staying as agile and as lean for as long as you can. So
Here's an interesting question aimed at Rich, but actually for all 3 of you, which is, what do you look at to see whether an emerging brand can span a mainstream market or whether it is too niche? And of course, I think there's some in the question. Sometimes I don't think there is such a thing as too niche with the right brand, but I'm curious what any of your reactions are. Start with you, Rich.
That's a good question. You know, is it a fad? Is it a trend? Is it a niche? Some niches are good. We like to find things that we can close our eyes and think about scalability to at you know, from us at least 50, but if we sell it to somebody, they're going to want to double or triple that to 150, $200 million or more. So we got to look at that whole scale. And so niche things, we probably aren't really good at niche. You might be really good to take something to like, you know, don't use names, but take something to like Whole Foods or Sprouts and say that's where we're going. Just a natural section. It's going to be a little niche and it'll be a nice little business for a couple people, but it's not something we would want to do because it's scalable. But niche is not bad. I agree with you, Gary, especially if it's something that fits a consumer's need and the retailer says we need that for our consumer, then you got a little business.
The question is though, what helps you to make that decision that something is actually going to be able to cross over and make it?
Well, I mean, it's just, you know, I've been doing this my whole life, so I kind of use a lot of gut feeling. But we talk to retailers and we do our consumer insights, and we have a whole consumer insight lab here. So we might talk to 1,000 people, 2,000 people. And so between insights and talking to retailers and our gut, we just make the call. Pretty easy, straightforward. You know, I have an old saying that I may not always be right, but I'm not indecisive.
What about the other two? You have a sense of what something signaled to you that this crazy ass idea is? I mean, Elliot, you gave a long list of sort of benchmarks, net necessities, but there's that first moment when you are assessing. Anything?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think about it in what we call the circle theory, right? So if that niche to start with is in a cluster of consumers that have high connectivity, high self-identity, limited sources of information that can become evangelical, and then they can begin to carry that message across to the next bigger ripple and continue on. That's when I see opportunity, right? So, and it's still, to Rich's point, part of it is gut, but if it's going to be able, the closer the niche is tied to self-identity, the more likely you're going to be able to galvanize people to carry that message for you and expand the circle and then go from there. If it's not tied to self-identity or high connectivity and it's just niche, it could be a really good business, but it's probably not going to bridge the gap between staying very niche and going more mainstream. You need people who can carry the message, and that starts with if it's tied to self-identity and therefore people like to be in the know and they like to share.
I think that's like, I'll add 2 practical things to that, because that's a really smart and, thinking about the consumer and how people are gonna be attracted to a product. I think also just getting to price point and how much you might be able to come down and how wide you can go with your audience is a big one. And then thinking about how people are using the product and how often. So something might feel like a niche product, but people are eating it or drinking it 3 times a day. That's attractive. More like a niche baking mix that you're using once a month. So some of those sort of practical questions are important as well.
Yeah.
And speaking of, real quick, speaking of niche baking, as you said, these stop puffs that we came up with is that this is not marshmallows, this is confectionery. So back to Elliot's point, if we looked at this as a niche as just a marshmallow, I would have never invested in it. I would have never spent $25 million on a pilot plant to see if we could do something that nobody's done in 100 years, right? So this niche with stop puffs, we're looking in a $42 billion market and not a $1 billion market. So the niche can get bigger if you can figure out how to do something. And all these products, not only, we figured if we have a new product, we might as well have a new bag. So we actually made a bag that's reclosable. So you can reach right in and take the product out and just eat it. And then you can seal the bag back up. So it's just resealable.
Yeah.
So new product, new bag.
Yeah, it's taking a niche and making it mainstream. So
Yep.
I have to make a quick comment. In 1983, Samuel, my partner, made this incredible Greek yogurt. I'm making this point to say that timing is often a factor here. For 15 years, we kept trying to bring the Greek yogurt to Rich. I got to mute you. Sorry. For 15 years, I kept trying to bring Greek yogurt in front of buyers. They would say, no, 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 no. And finally, in 1999, I saw Signorella or Zabar's, one of those Upper West Side niche grocers, had brought Faye over from Greece. And I said, okay, it's here. And that niche, as we now know, became $1 billion category. So sometimes it's about sticking around. So we have a very practical example here. A question for you, Rich. Curious if you think the fresh baby category can become as successful as fresh pet. If you have any thoughts or recommendations, fresh baby category is still in its infancy at 30 to 50 million. I can tell you.
And that, by the way, is a great unintended pun, that it's still in its infancy.
Yeah, well said.
Call that out.
Well said. How do we get it to adolescence? But I can tell you with Yo Baby, we tried 4 years to do exactly what you did with Fresh Pet, to put a cooler in the baby food section, the middle of the store. And I loved when you commented about there's no electricity, because that was, one of the things that Elly's old company, would not, I couldn't get them over that. But comment?
Yeah, no, really. I think everybody in the baby food business has stopped by to talk to me because of refrigerators, and asked me to invest in it. The difference between Fresh Pet is that way more barriers in Fresh Pet. And in Fresh Pet, we had enough products that we could take 4 feet up and go in, go big, go in and do it. And some of those rolls are like $30 for a roll, right? Or a bag. So we had a lot of turnover of capital there. Some of those coolers were $3,000 and $4,000. We had payout on those coolers like in 6 months or less, right? So, but what happens is that on baby food, there's no barrier to entry. There's no barrier to entry. There's like 5, 6, 7, 8 of them out there. So if I'm a buyer at Whole Foods, it's like, well, who am I going to choose? Am I going to choose somebody and put a small cooler in the baby section? Well, wait, Gerber's over here doing tests at Walmart. Well, what am I going to do with that? Well, if I put a cooler in, am I going to pick the top 3? So I really can't brand the cooler. So I have three or four different companies in there. And so it's all garbled up. There's not any one winner or one person that says, I'm in. If Gerber would say, I'm going to do this and I'm in and I'm going to make this happen, then it could change the whole category. But the smaller ones on refrigerated, I can't see how I could invest in any of them and go to a buyer and say, okay, I'm in this one. You saw what I did with Fresh Pet, and I'm going to put a cooler in, and I want the name. He's going to go, yeah, but I got 3 or 4 guys I want to put in that cooler. So we'll get you the cooler. You put the cooler in, but we're not going to brand it. And I'm going, nah, that's not good for me. So if you look at Fresh Pet, we've been on the end cap for Target for many, many years. And it stops people with a shopping cart. They stop and go, that's interesting. So we're actually creating growth in the category. And I'm not sure that can happen in baby with a small little cooler, because you'd always be out of stock.
Mm-hmm.
The one comment I would make there is just to think about some other categories where there have been entrants to the refrigerator, like bars and, fresh condiments, et cetera. A lot is moving to refrigeration. So I think, Rich, absolutely, you guys made such a stake and really put, you were your own billboard in the store. But there is something to be said for the more fresh baby food companies come on, the more space is going to have to be made, and coolers just dedicated that are already in the store without that branding. So it may not have the same platform, but I think there is an opportunity, and it might even benefit you to have a few different players in the set, because then you've actually created a category. Another example would be the smaller shots, juice shots and whatnot, never had a home or a place in the store, and now they're taking up 6, 8 feet in some cases.
Yeah, and if the buyer, with the buyer's power, get 4 or 5 of them together, because the store's not going to buy the cooler. They're not going to maintain the cooler. They're not going to do any of that work. So if the buyers can figure out how to get a cooler in at somebody else's expense and then maintain it, run the power to it, and do all the cost, it's hard when you don't have a category captain or a leader that's going to do that. But you're absolutely right, Elly. The soup category is something we've been looking at for a long time. Fresh soups, right? Yeah. How about right next to Campbell's Soup, big refrigerator with fresh soups there, so I don't have to go to the deli area. It's right there. How about, I can go on and on. How about let's put all the coffee creamers right next to the coffee. So when I buy my coffee, I can look at all the chilled coffee creamers and et cetera, et cetera. I have a whole list as long as my arm.
I think one important distinction, though, and the reason why I think your argument around Fresh Pet worked is because where would you put that? At least in the stores, when it comes to other food and beverage items, there's already refrigeration space. So putting another food, creating a baby set within the dairy case works. If suddenly, dog food was next to Stonyfield, it probably wouldn't work as well. And so I think that's something you need to think through as you think strategically. And this is when you mentioned the ability to build a community of collaborators. And Elly, I couldn't agree more about this industry. This is one of those industries where, collaboration amongst brands that ordinarily would look competitive is really possible. And I think, really thinking through how you might approach a retailer with a solution for the retailer that's in the interest of the category and the consumer, where you as a brand have to perform against other brands, and don't be afraid of beating your competition, but bring a real solution as a community of brands, saying, there needs to be this set in the store, and here's how we would do it, and here's who the players should be.
Yeah, well said. Listen, I want to say this quickly because we've got about 8 minutes. I knew this would happen, all these great questions coming, but my son has his line of shots, which is in whole body. And now, to your point, Elly, Whole Foods is recognizing they need a shots space. They have no idea where to put it. There now are so many stick packs coming out. Rich is now into it. There's going to have to be, we're talking, and yet the cost of reinvention of retail is ridiculous. So I can't underscore enough what the last couple of comments. And I would say to the questioner or questioners, right now with COVID, building your case through e-com and then finding peer collaborators. Once Upon a Farm talks to Stonyfield because they've got compatible pouches selling to the same mom. That's what's needed, because getting a retailer right now to reinvent when they're just getting store traffic back is just a non-go. So listen, we've got about 8 minutes. I'm going to have some quick fired questions. Elly and I will have some quick fired questions. Elliot, how do founders in your tardigrade program interact with each other? Are there services across the portfolio that allow for cost or market synergies?
Yeah, really quickly, we try to bring programs to them from lots of service providers. We have our online community. We have it's one of the great things that I've just been able to get out of the way with, and our community manager fosters, is this ability to interact and collaborate and work together. And a lot of them have built really, really good business friendships as well as just personal friendships, and it's something I'm very proud of.
Yeah. And Rich, oh, go ahead, Elly, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't actually remember if this was a Rich quote or maybe Elliot saying the battle is getting on the shelf, the war is getting off.
That was me.
That was you, right, Elliot?
That's an old one I trot out every time I get, it's part of my shtick.
Give a little bit more detail on that, because I think for someone who's not recognizing getting off, like, of course you don't want to get off, but what do you mean by
Selling
that?
through.
Yeah, actually getting into the shopping cart, right? So, I mean, we celebrate and we high five when we get a PO, or we get told we're going going on shelf or in a schematic. But that's the start of the work. The real work is being able to leverage that real estate, because don't anyone can kid themselves. It's a real estate business, At the end of the day, it's how much gross profit you can generate out of the category for the amount of linear space you're given in that store. And your job is to prove to the retailer, prove to the category that you can, it's accretive and it's a benefit to them. And so you need to know, before you say yes to go on the shelf, you need to understand what your strategy is and have confidence in that strategy to get into the cart and into the hands of the consumer.
Well, and every retailer we've had on this webinar has underscored the critical importance of value right now.
Yep.
Value for family pack, but also it's dollar dense for them. Rich, you mentioned this, and someone's asking, have any of your brands graduated and been pushed out of the building or sold? Just quick if you can.
Two have been pushed out. Honey Stinger is in Steamboat Springs, Colorado now, with a team of about 45 people. And Stop Puffs, we just finished spending about $100 million on building the world's largest s'mores factory. And they have about 135 people about 10 minutes from here in a new 165,000 square foot facility. So two have been pushed out, but they haven't been sold yet.
Elle, you got one?
Yeah, I think this is a really good one. Either of you speaking to how do brands go about getting discovered or sort of new brand activation in the times of COVID, which is like the pressing question I get, most days.
I'll take a stab at it because it's really specific to the brand. I'll say it first kind of at a theoretical level, or it's, listen, if you're in this business, you started a brand, you started it probably for one of two reasons. Either you're solving a problem or you're filling an unmet need. What you have to think about is, how do you get closer to where that problem is pronounced or that need is acute? That's what you have to do. You have to recognize that so much of what we were doing for discovery was done on brick and mortar or paid acquisition, but there's all kinds of innovative. You have to be as entrepreneurial and innovative as that. How can you get closer to the consumer in that moment of need or where that problem is pronounced? That's either on the digital plane or physical plane. And think of unique locations, think of unique ways to reach out to them. But there is it's very specific to your brand, to the problem that you're solving, and to the consumer that you're trying to attract.
Cool. You have a comment on it, Rich, on discovery right now?
I agree with Elliot. It's pretty much, you gotta go out and hustle your ass off.
Yeah. So we have really some great questions. There's one very specific one for you, Rich. Maybe you can just answer her directly if you look at the question. But let me just say, there's a very interesting question, and it's a good one to close on, from Sherry. As Elly said, some of us come to CPG from other industries. In our young, small company, we're frequently intimidated by being unfamiliar with many of the terms used both in natural products and in investing. We've got a trillion things to learn, and sometimes learning terminology doesn't seem like the best use of our time. Can investors see our true potential, even if we can't talk all the lingo? Or will we look so experienced that it will cost us our credibility? Now, all three of you are hand holders. You've been very clear that you don't expect folks to know everything, but I'd love, as we close out, to have all three of you respond to Sherry.
Elly, you go first.
Sure. You know, I do think it's finding the balance, but you really don't need to know everything. And there's so much lingo, but you're going to find that in anything. You're going to find that meeting with buyers. I found myself often being the translator at Whole Foods of buyers are just talking a mile a minute to you, giving you, you know, OIs, like TPRs, anything that you're not going to know the answers to. And it's fine to ask questions. It's fine to admit it. And yeah, we're getting a recommendation from Shay to buy Bob's book, which that manual will save you a lot of time. But I think it's a balance. You want to be learning as much as you can, but don't slow down too much to know, you know, the nuts and bolts. You'll learn.
Yeah, I agree with Elly. Is that it's like discovery, right? When you show up at a buyer, he sees somebody that's inexperienced or maybe green, but you got a really good idea and a good project. They're like, hey, I've discovered something. If you come in too knowledgeable, too slick, whatnot, then they go, oh, well, you know, you must be selling me a story. So don't be afraid. Just show up and, be yourself and just say, here's what my idea is. And if you don't know everything, it's no big deal, right? They're not going to throw you out because you didn't know what CPG meant or what, POP was or something like that. So you just tell them what you're thinking and they'll give you some good feedback because most buyers are really good people.
Elliot.
Yeah, I would say two things, and I'm going to speak out of two sides of my mouth. First of all, it's great to be a student of this industry and learn. I mean, the more you can learn and ask questions, the more confidence you're going to have and the less asymmetry of information that there will be. But absolutely, it's unrealistic to know everything. And I mean, half the time we use terms that we have no freaking clue what they actually mean. They just sound cool and it's what we're supposed to say. I would tell you that, to a person in this industry, if you stop someone, even an investor, and said, you've used this term a few times and it's super embarrassing, but I really don't understand it. Will you take a minute to explain it to me? I think most investors would think to themselves, and Elly, you can disagree, but most investors would think, now this is a founder who's willing to be coached and is willing to learn and ask a question and look upon it as something favorable versus not, especially if you're willing and have the moxie to ask it right then and there. There's a lot of teachers here and we all had to learn. Trust me, none of us came in here with this knowledge and we cloak it in fancy words and acronyms and so forth. But it's not that complex, and don't be bashful in asking the questions.
Well said. Listen, this is just a rich tapestry. We could go on for hours, but I want to say that, Rich, you said it at the beginning, and this was exactly my intent today. The real answer to that last question is pick your partners right. Mm-hmm. Elly's just described a very different kind of investor in Almanac than existed in my day. In my day, I literally had venture funds with guys with their feet up on their chair, clipping their fingernails during their meeting with me, saying, no, they masters of the universes, who looked at organic as this niche, right? Yeah. And, be proud of what you don't know, be authentic. It's fine. We all had to go through it, but you've heard today from three wonderful examples of partners who can help you to network and that's so much of this. None of us can know everything. So speaking of that, Carlene, if we could just put up the closing slides here. I want to tell you, I couldn't be more excited about our upcoming Institute. We've got 2 more webinars scheduled before then. So let me just mention, next week is sort of taking a cue from today. It's all about innovation. Walter Robb, who many folks know, Elly certainly knows as the former co-CEO of Whole Foods, has been doing a lot of consulting, a lot of helping as an angel investor, as an advisor to funds on helping with innovation. And he's got a wonderful summary presentation on things you got to really think about with innovation. And then Seth Goldman has been in the process of launching 2 innovative businesses during COVID. Most of you would know Seth as Honest Tea or Beyond Beef, but he and his family have two cool innovations that they're going to talk about. And then we're going to close out with two amazing independent retailer stories who are just digging in even deeper into organic, regenerative, sustainable, and who are absolutely rocking during COVID, not without some rocks of their own. Mike, you may know Earth Fare has opened 20 stores during COVID since a year ago. So Mike will be here to talk to us about what's going on with Earth Fare, what they're looking for in partners. And Jimbo Samek, who's just a legend in this industry, has been killing it with Jimbo's, had some interesting adventures during COVID. So please join us for those. And then, as I was starting to say, our Institute, we'll take a pause after that. Our Institute is just chock full of, well, everybody on this panel is a part of the Institute. You can see our key speakers. In fact, there's Partake, one of Rich's friends. But remember that day one is cash and financing. You can submit your cases. We'll have room for 4 cases that day. The next day is your brand story, telling it, how you get off the shelf, how you build loyalty, how you bridge with the consumer through both retail and e-com. We have an opportunity for 6 cases that day. And then on May 7th, if you're pitching, if you're raising capital, everybody who's with us today, Elly, Rich, Elliot, and about 30 other investors will be there. So get your pitches in. It's only $50, cheaper than Bob's book. So, but all kidding aside, buy Bob's book. By the way, Bob will be with us throughout, but fantastic speakers this time around and unbelievable panelists. So I hope you'll quickly get on board and spread the word about that. So finally, just in closing, you know, as we always say, if you do have a service for the community, you've seen Bob's, you've seen others, we do have 2 more spots the next couple of weeks. Go ahead and let us know. And then, as we always say, if you are have any feedback for us, for our panelists, Carlene has posted their contact information for Elliot and Rich and Elly. Please, we're all here to help. That's really what the summary is. You may you may have to get in a line to get into Rich's factory or Elliot's program or Elly's fund, but all 3 have offered with their generosity to tell, you know, they're all here to talk to you. And, you know, as Rich said, it took 51 tries, right, to get to that bank. Ben and Jerry's went to 34 banks before they found one, and that bank laughed all the way to the IPO. I talked to 500 investors, you know, to get 100, maybe 5,000. I'm in denial about that. So let us know how we can be helpful to you and stay in touch. And again, thank you to the panelists for a fantastic day. Thank you to New Hope Network for being our partner. And of course, thank you to Carlene for helping make all this work. And we will see you next week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.